Hello and welcome everybody to a new episode of the J-Rock Show. I'm your host, as always, Jason J.K. Candell. It's great to be back in the SimWorld TV studios here, but unfortunately, I don't have a guest for you all on this fine Friday here in the SimWorld TV studios. I'm by my lonesome, but that doesn't matter. Plenty of SimWorld U action to get into. It's great to be back here. I hope you all really enjoyed the article I did on Charles Pinkard yesterday, because I really enjoyed talking to him and picking his brain, especially after the victory Kansas had on Wednesday night. It was a great game getting to call that with B-Ron. Great getting to be back in East Lansing at the Breslin Center. As you all know, I love my Spartans, but I'm going to remain objective. But plenty to get into this week. You know how I love to start these episodes, so let's not waste any time. And I'm going to start right off with the J-Rock Performer of the Week. And the J-Rock Performer of the Week this week, it's an easy one for me. There's two guys I want to shout out, and the first one being Nas Hall of Kansas. I was there in Allen Fieldhouse, and all I can say about Nas Hall is that man can flat out score. He can make them from anywhere on the court. 31 points against Kansas State, 19 in the first half. He was my JK's player of the night on Wednesday, and he's just a guy that's just as talented as they come in the scoring column. A freshman that I think deserves a lot more attention. Kansas wins nine in a row, and it's a lot because of his emergence. Having him and Madison Miles playing their best basketball at the same point in the season has Kansas primed to return to the quad. They're a team that I would be shaking in my boots about, because you got Madison Miles, you got Nas Hall, and you still got guys like Charles Pinkard and Jabbar Wilson. This is a very, very well-coached Bill Self team here in Lawrence and Kansas, and they have plenty of talent to complement that. They have two guys that are going to be lottery picks down the line, and I think Charles Pinkard is another guy who's going to serve an SWBA rotation very well. And I'm very impressed with what this Kansas team has done. They're 20-7 and they're 21-7, and they just look flat out fantastic. They outplayed K-State in every aspect of the game in the second half, and it's because of a guy like Nas Hall. So I'm impressed. That's a real lethal two-headed monster for the Jayhawks. But another guy who I want to shout out is in the game of the week, and that's Dewan Epps. 15 and 12, double-double on primetime on ESPN in Alabama's biggest game of the season, yet it doesn't matter, because he held Jamison Johnson to 10 points, 5 of 20 from the floor. Are you kidding me? Like, Jamison Johnson is a future top 5 pick, top 3, you could even say, and he gave him a fit. He had his worst game of the season, probably. Jamison Johnson just could not get any rhythm on the offensive end, and a guy like Dewan Epps is going to make it tough on you. Him and Levin Cutler, having them both in the front court for Nate Oates' squad, oh man, this is an Alabama team I am petrified of facing in Hoopsteria. They're a 1 seed, and I'll be honest, I think they're my national title pick right now. I gave them a lot of flack a couple of weeks ago about not having enough depth, and I thought that would be a concern after they lost to Mississippi State, as Zach Nichols reported. And I agreed with Zach at the time, but now I don't. This Alabama team has DJ Child, Quincy Henderson, Levin Cutler, Dewan Epps, just so many guys who can attack you, and they have a whole starting lineup full of guys that I don't really want to face. I'm a little bit concerned about their inconsistencies from deep, but right now they're looking like the team that's should be the most feared, because they got the talent, and they're in the SEC, which I consider to be the best conference in all of SimWorld U. They swept Kentucky. They're 1-0 against Arkansas, and they play them again next week. And that's a game you got to be seeded for, because if they go 4-0 against Kentucky and Arkansas, they'll win the SEC, and they should be the number 1 overall seed. And if they are, I'm still buying. So those are my J-Rock Performers of the Week, kind of more team-based oriented awards this week. But I also want to give a shout out to Nick Beal, Because I was in East Lansing, and Jai Edge and Jadrian Elia are some damn good talents. But Nick Beal is like the best player on the floor. 15 of his 23 in the first half. Sparty tried to come back, but Nick Beal just buried him too far, and I really wanted to pick him for JK's player of the night on Tuesday, but I just couldn't in good conscience due to D. Woodley outdoing Lace Darius Outlaw. And on that note, JSU, another team I'm very big on over the next couple of weeks, but that's not really how I'm going to spend this episode. What I'm going to be talking about this episode are the 5 teams I think you guys need to be on the lookout for during the end of the season. I'm not just kind of more on that bubble range, though. At 500, around 500, below 500, doesn't matter. These are the teams that are sleepers. And I'm going to start with the Colorado Buffaloes. Brian Vaughn is doing really good things for this Colorado team, but it's getting overshadowed. They've won 4 of their last 5. It's getting overshadowed because he's kind of a bit of a head case. It seems to be a bit of a head case. And people don't really know about that or talk about that. I don't know what have you. But Brian Vaughn has been fantastic this year. He's a guy who's right back on my first round radar because he's a double-double machine. He's a guy that can help an SWBA contender right now. I don't care how insane you are. And he's turning a corner. Like I mentioned, Colorado 4 of the last 5. And you got him, you got Brett Vaughn, you got Jaden Thomas. You have a lot of talent on this Colorado team who is hitting their stride in a very open Pac-12. I mentioned Jaden Thomas, I mentioned Brett Vaughn, but another guy I really like is Jaziel Mead, the freshman. I really like that freshman guard duo for the Buffaloes. They're still 11 and 15, so they have some work they have to do, but I am very confident because I believe that they are a team that is talented enough to warrant a spot in Hoops area, whether that be a play-in spot or one of those lower seeds. That's not a team that you can really take lightly. They've knocked off UCLA. They can make the conference title game, and I think that they could get as high as a 9-10 seed if things really shake up well for them. Next team I want to talk about feels like they're very, very popular as a Hoops area sleeper, and that's the Auburn Tigers. 13 and 13, they're sitting at 500, but they've won 4 of their last 5 and 3 in a row. You got Barkley James, 15 a night, 40% from the floor, over 40 from deep. He's emerged as that true go-to scorer. We know he was that second option behind Benari with Heartland during his prep days. But as a go-to scoring option, he always had what it took because he can shoot and he can create his own shot and he can kind of take what the defense gives him in ways that even his brother can. He's much more consistent as a shooter, especially from long range. He just knows how to make shots, and Auburn's got a lot to prove. They lost in the first round of Hoops Area last year. They were upset by North Texas, and Bruce Pearl's going to want to get that team right. Honcho Hardwick's been a walking double-double. And then you still got a guy like my man Bevinson Patches, who's a defensive stalwart, is a solid playmaker, is just a great point guard and floor general for that Auburn offense, alongside a guy like Barkley James, who's that go-to scorer who can give you a bucket in any moment when you need one. They can shoot the 3 well. They make shots at a high volume, this Auburn team. And the SEC's tough, but this is a team that I really, really like, because as long as you're getting good consistency out of Barkley James and Bevins and Patches, they're a team that can kind of compete with anybody. I got to watch them beat Tennessee by 20 in Knoxville. Like, this is a damn good team. Let's not get it twisted. But that leads me to another team, and this is a team that I've had a lot of conflicting opinions about across this season, and that's the Michigan Wolverines. You got some really, really talented big men for Dusty May and the Wolverines. You got Richard Przarski, Lorenzo Phenom. Both of those guys are probably gone after the year and will be drafted in, I'll say, in the top 20, 25 of the 2025 SWBA draft. Like, I'm not going to question that. I don't think any of you should. But what I really like about this Michigan team is Samuel Bogus. Big Shot Bog, for those of you who know him from his Bad Boys basketball days. Not really the most consistent three-point shooter percentage-wise. Still the team leader in that spot. They are awful from deep. Like, I'm not endorsing that. I'm worried about that for that reason. But Pizarski and Phenom are true go-to scorers that can give really any team a fit in Hoopsteria. We know that Michigan loves their big men. We've seen it with them before. They had Hunter Dickinson for a very long time, and now they have Phenom and Pizarski, and with them and Bogus, that's a really strong trio as long as they're making shots relatively consistently from other areas of the floor outside the paint. I like this Michigan team. They've won back-to-back. They're 4 of the last 5. They're getting hot at the right time in a Big Ten conference that is not easy. Like, Pizarski and Phenom have mended fences. I've kind of mentioned it, and now that they've kind of reconciled and got past their battle of egos or whatever you want to call it, Michigan's playing some really good basketball. They love to facilitate the ball between Bogus and Buffini, and I just think as long as Pizarski and Phenom can stay on the right track, they can do some stuff. But I'm just concerned about their lack of consistency at guard or depth there behind Samuel Bogus, because none of these names really jump off the page at me. Buffini is kind of a wing, and Sincere Cooper, solid. I think they could very well do stuff, but they're definitely a team I'm keeping on my radar, especially if they're continuing to be that underdog of sorts. But I'm going to go right back to the SEC for Team 4, and that is the Missouri Tigers. Last night, Japhet Towns finally had that breakout performance he's been waiting for. 26 points for the Tigers. He's a guy that's still putting up pretty good shooting numbers. He's just handling so much volume at once that it's been a lot for him to handle. But it doesn't matter. He's still 16 a night, 48 made threes on the year. He's not having that Cooper Flagg or Arthur Lattimore, Justin Bell level freshman season. But Japhet Towns is still really, really talented for this Mizzou team. And between him and Dylan Bannon, that's 2 options I really like, and 2 guys who can stretch the floor really well. And between them and David Drafin, too, even, that's 3 guys who I really trust to just keep this Missouri offense alive. They've won back-to-back as well, and they're 5 games below 500. They're 11-16. But Missouri is a team that has talent. So even if they sneak into Hoopsteria as a 13, 14, 15, even a 16 seed, they're going to give teams a fit because they got an offense that's tough and that's managed to stay afloat at times in the SEC. Next team I want to bring up is the final. I'm actually going to do 6 because 1 for good luck. And the next team I want to talk about are the New Mexico Lobos. I love Ireland early. This Lobos team has some guys I like. They have they have Damari Gay, they've Tayshaun Hutcherson, who's been solid at the small forward spot. They got Taz Cooper, who I forgot about, the team captain. Between Gay and Cooper, that's a really good big man duo. And they're going to control the paint pretty much against anybody they face. They're, I believe, at the top of the Mountain West in threes made a game. They shoot the 3 really well. Damari Gay, phenomenal stretch big, 6'9", but can hold his own on the perimeter and and on the inside. So I really like that. They have a lot of recruits coming in. I like this New Mexico team a lot. With Richard Pitino, he's a good coach. They're 3 games above 500, but they're still a team that's they're pretty safe, but they're a team where if they're an 8 or a 9 or in a certain position in Hoopsteria, I think I would not be surprised if they pulled off a few upsets. And lastly, but certainly not least, you should already know where I'm going. And I'm going to tell you about a team in the Big East, and that's the Marquette Golden Eagles. They've lost 2 straight. They're 4 games below 500. But this is a Marquette team I really like. they got pieces. Shaka Smart's a great coach, especially in the spring months, March, April, what have you, in the closing months of the season. I really like what he's capable of. And Marcus Lefa, 14 a game, 50% from the floor, 40 from deep. Alex Rodriguez has been really impressive to me as a freshman. Another guy that can kind of score from everywhere. You know all about him from the north. And Javion Stubblefield, the other guard in that backcourt for the Golden Eagles. This is just a lot of guys who can just step up and produce. And I'm a big thing where, if you notice, there's a trend with me. I love teams that have guard depth or have guys that are trusted go-to scorers. And that's what I'm looking for in a true dark horse in Hoopsteria. It's these teams that have deep benches or good coaches or guys that can just come into the game and hit a big shot. I don't like teams in Hoopsteria that play that interior game. I don't think Iowa's going very far. They don't have a lot of help for Lamarian Sherwood, and he can't shoot. He can make shots, but he's not making anything outside the paint. So I'm concerned about them. So that's why you're going to notice me gravitating toward teams like Auburn for upsets, or teams like Marquette. And even with their lack of big men, a team like Michigan or a team like Colorado, it's because it's these teams that have a lot to play for, have a lot of motivation, and they play really, really tough. And but like I said, it's guards who win games. That's who's possessing the ball in the final minutes when you need to make a shot. So I trust the teams that are good defensively, know how to have good rotations, and can shoot well from deep. So appreciate you all tuning into this episode. I'm hoping to have Coach Straighten on next week to talk some things over, but if not, I have some things in the works, so stay tuned for that. Appreciate you all tuning in. And remember, folks, SimWorld is the only place you can see the game, be the game. Have a great week, and I'll be with you all soon.